Hello and welcome to Solely Singleton episode 176. I'm your host Brad. This is my co-host Eric.
How's it going?
We're discussing Dominaria United hot takes this week. However, it's slightly different than usual. On this episode, we're going to discuss Rares and Mythics with only Eric and I. Next episode, we're discussing commons and uncommons, all of them, with Christian. That will be next week's episode. For us, it's tomorrow, but you don't have to worry about that. We're recording this essentially 2 days before it goes live, and there is no way I'm asking for a 20-hour turnaround time and killing an editor to get both episodes out in the same week.
Yeah, that's a bit ridiculous, especially because the commons and uncommons
Is a huge topic.
Look pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's going to be the big one.
Yeah, this set is interesting in the fact that I, with a normal cube carrying capacity that's not a peasant or a pauper, care more about the commons and uncommons than I do about the rares and mythics.
Yeah, I mean, that said, there are some decent ones that we'll bring up on this episode of Rares and Mythics. It's not nothing.
We still have like 20-something cards to talk here. So
Yeah.
So this is Dominaria United and Dominaria United Commander. The whole deal. I just want all that out there. Okay, this is a very long, boring intro. I'm sorry, but let's get into this thing.
Sounds good.
All right, Eric, start us off.
I'll tell you about the Guardian of New Benalia, who's 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier with enlist. Whenever Guardian of New Benalia enlists a creature, scry 2, you can discard a card to have Guardian of Benalia gain indestructible until end of turn and tap it. So enlist is, as this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. When you do, add its power to this creature's until end of turn. This is really good.
This is just the Seasoned Hollowblade upgrade card, like,
flat
out.
The discarded card, gain indestructible, tap it, dude, it's big. Like, it does matter. Discarding a card kind of sucks instead of, like, life for some of the other ones, and enlist can make it big.
Yes. And that's honestly, like, the huge deal to me is often there are board states where you've got, like, your 2/1, your 3/1, and maybe a 1/1 token or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you're in that awkward position where you want to be swinging in and applying pressure, but they've got, like,
a 4/4.
Not even that, just, like, a generic, a 2/3, where it's like, crap, they're going to eat my 2/1 the next trade with my 3/1, and, like, it feels miserable because you're like, I want to be applying pressure, but I'm going to be losing a bunch of cards in the process.
Yeah.
Whereas this card, you're just like, I'm going to play this, I'll swing with this, I'll enlist my 3/1, swing for 5 on a single body, go ahead, try to block it, you idiot.
Yeah, and I'm scrying 2 at the same time because, like, I enlisted, and hey, value.
Yeah. Which is, honestly, the card selection is huge if you're in, like, an aggro deck where drawing's hard.
Yeah.
And then it's just got Seasoned Hollowblade's Stay Alive feature, which I still prefer Adanto Vanguards just paying life, but it's fine. Like, Seasoned Hollowblade is still pretty damn good, and this is pretty much an upgrade to it in almost every way.
Yeah.
Technically, it has 1 less power, but whatever. I can't say anything bad about this card other than, like, you know, it's a 2-drop in white that beats face. We've got a lot.
Yeah, we've got options, but I do think this is one of the better ones. It's also human, so it's got, like, good creature typing. It basically does everything that you want in that slot, honestly. And I'm a fan. Big fan.
I'm also just a fan of the stained glass art thing.
It does look pretty cool.
It's so... I love all of that look that they gave for the Benalia stuff.
I'm not sure on the armor, like the chest.
Oh no, I dig it. I dig it.
I'm here for it, but like that shield, I'm a huge fan of that shield. Like, that looks so cool.
All right, let's get into a less slam dunk pick. We've got Sarah Paragon, which is 2 white for a 3/4 creature angel with flying. Sarah Paragon also has, once during each of your turns, you may play a land card from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it gains, when this permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, exile it and you gain 2 life. I'm flipping off my monitor right now. because what the fuck is the wording on this card?
So this, I think, is quite a strong card.
I don't. I think this is a mediocre card in the strongest section of White Curve in Cube.
Yeah, 4-drop creatures in white, you've got a lot of very good options to choose from. The thing is like, I do think there's a lot of value coming from this card.
The Sun Titan trigger is good.
It is.
But the Sun Titan trigger that exiles it afterwards means you're not going to do anything value like with fetch lands or stuff. You'll do it once, but like you're not getting much out of it.
You're not continually doing it. You might eventually run out of value.
Yeah. And that seems like too fair of a solution. It has to be doing stuff like giving a second life to your Guardian of New Benalia or whatever.
Yeah.
Something with more to it. Getting back an O-ring, all of the things that we always hope for with a Sun Titan trigger. It's earlier in the curve, which is nice because Sun Titan is way too old and clunky.
Yeah, Sun Titan's just not doing it anymore. So 4-drop is where you're going to get some value out of it.
And it's at the point in the curve where if you are playing this as like the top end in an aggressive slanted deck, whether it's true aggro or just a lower drop mid-range deck, your cards you're getting back if they're creatures are still somewhat relevant.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if we're on to 6 drops, your opponent probably has something on board where they don't care about your 2/1s or your 3/1s.
I mean, the base stats are not fantastic, but they're not bad. Like, a flying 3-power is solid. I think my problem with Sarah Paragon is it's not doing anything particularly spectacular. It's just, in my opinion, solid at a mid-range point. And
yes.
I mean, some people are going to be happy with that value, mid-range, solid card, but there's a lot of options at 4.
If we're comparing it to something like Halvar or whatever, which is also just that, like, it's a value thing.
Yeah.
This wins by not being as horribly complicated. It just has really clunky wording.
I don't think the wording's that clunky, honestly. I think you just have problems.
Mana value is the worst thing to ever happen to Magic the Gathering. Other than Ward.
Oh, yeah, Ward. Fuck Ward.
I don't think we get out of talking about Ward in this set either. Oh, maybe we dodged it. There might not have
been
a good Ward card.
Ward cards. I don't know if they're in the rare mythic. We'll see.
Anyway.
We'll see.
I just have mixed reactions on this. It might be fine. I think it's probably fine at least.
Oh, it's definitely fine at least. Like, if you test this or it's in your cube, you're not going to hate it. Like, it's not going to be bad.
Fine in white 4s is not good enough often.
Generally, no.
So, if you want to test it, absolutely test it. I don't think it's going to be that great. Like, I'm looking for, like, great cases where I can be like, oh my god, you can do this.
I think that's the problem in your mindset on what this card's trying to do. I think this card's not trying to do that, oh my god, this. It's just, it's a mid-range card. It's going to get you value. It's decent stats.
If I change it over from, like, an aggressive card to a tempo card, getting back Mana War variants, which we'll be talking about momentarily, getting back Mana War variants is pretty strong. And those are things that tend to die a lot anyway.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah, when we move outside of getting back white permanents, you have a lot better things because they're not white cards.
Yes, and if you just kind of like ignore, like, it's not really an aggressive card. It might have an aggressive slant to it sometimes, but like, it's a mid-range card that maybe tempo, maybe a green-white mid-range.
I think green-white is the worst place for it.
Probably.
Just looking through here right now, this is all so fair to get back.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, I don't think fair to get back is a problem for this card. It's not necessarily a boon.
I don't know. I have mixed reaction.
I think it's a solid card. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it unless you're expecting amazing, because it's just, you're not going to be doing busted things. And especially with the permanent that you're getting back being exiled, like, you're not going to be doing combo type stuff. You're not going to be doing any kind of shenanigans like that. So it's just a fair mid-range card and whatever.
All right, let's move into our final white card.
Okay, we've got Temporary Lockdown. 1 white for an enchantment. When Temporary Lockdown enters the battlefield, exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until temporary lockdown leaves the battlefield. And I think it's good. Like, it's a 3-drop board wipe for what you're looking for.
Yeah, and white doesn't have the amount of them black does, so while this one is quite limited in scope, it hits what you care about most.
Yeah.
Which is the point of these. The 3-drop board wipes always either come with a massive downside or are limited, right?
Yep. I mean, that's kind of the point. Like, 4-drop is where you get, like, here's a board wipe. 3-drop is, here's a board wipe, but.
Yeah. And I think this is just solid. Like,
I do as well.
2 or less is basically anything your opponent's going to play when you care about having your 3-mana board wipe. It is awkward when you draw your late game board wipe and it's not doing anything. But you have to put the card in your deck knowing that. This is not replacing a Day of Judgment. This is your other insurance policy for a case the Day of Judgment has problems with.
Yeah, this is your insurance policy for, oh shit, I'm not going to make it to Day of Judgment.
Yeah. That third land didn't show up until turn 4, and there's a Goblin Guide and 2 different 2-drops in play beating my head in. Like,
yeah, like there's times when it's just like, I'm making it to 3 and I need to solve stuff now.
It gets rid of all tokens, which is nice too. Like, as a bonus point, they just poof out.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, I like this one a lot, actually. So, like, between Temporary Lockdown and Guardian of New Benalia, I think both of those are pretty slam dunky in white.
Yes.
Sarah Paragon, if you want to test it, test it. It's not my card.
Sure. I do like temporary lockdown, exiling like everything, like including your stuff, and then it coming back. So like when it comes back, like if you had something defensive, you still keep it kind of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't get rid of the board when it comes back or anything. It's not like a trade out. It's not pulling like a
Living Death or whatever.
Living Death, thank you. I was going insane.
Yeah. I think temporary lockdown just kind of does exactly what you're looking for in the controlling 3-drop slot. So
yeah,
not bad, but that's all in white. We can move into blue.
All right, let's talk about the mana war in the room.
The human wizard.
The human wizard in the room. Got him. All right, so we've got Aether Channeler, which is 2 and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard. When Aether Channel enters the battlefield, choose 1. Create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or draw a card.
Holy fuck, dude.
It slices, it dices, and it draws a card. This is the best mana war ever printed, obviously.
This thing's insane.
Even comparing it in another direction, Cloud Conceer without flying is not the worst case for a card to end up in.
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, Cloud Conceer is like legit, and like this is not the same, but it's a good option.
The other mode is that one, that Draft Chaff turned Pro Tour All-Star from Zendikar, where it was like the 2/1 Eldrazi for 3 that makes a 1/1.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put that in, but
no,
that's a tertiary mode on an insane card.
You're here for the mana war.
Yeah, obviously.
There's going to be good times that it's like Cloudkin, where you're just like, okay, whatever, let's draw a card because, you know, I'm not too worried right now. And sometimes you're just like, I've got a sword. How about I make a 1/1 flyer and put the sword on it? GG, idiot.
It gets dirtier when you're in an archetype where you're replaying it a lot. Like either you're playing it with that Sarah Paragon and bringing it back, or you're playing it in a Flicker deck or whatever. Because then when you don't want the mana war, you just draw cards. Or make 1/1s if you're trying to close out a game because you're in that awkward, I'm a tempo deck and my biggest creature has 3 power.
That happens.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot.
So sometimes you're just like, yeah, I need to close the game, and this makes it a turn faster.
Yep.
Aether Channeler, fucking slam dunk, amazing.
All right, let's talk about less of a slam dunk in the same slot, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is Haughty Djinn, which is 1 blue for a star 4 Djinn with flying. Haughty Djinn's power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Now, the Goblin Electromancers and the Brawls and all of those, they never work out. They're bad.
There are some cubes that it can be okay, but generally, no, they don't.
The only time you ever play them seems to be like in a storm thing.
Yeah.
That said, this is by far the best one that's been printed.
So it's got flying, and it can get pretty big pretty easily in those types of decks.
It's flying with 4 toughness.
Yeah. That's actually kind of ignored to that, but it is big. Like, it's a wall.
Yeah, because, like, the problem when you have Baral or Goblin Electromancers, like, they're 2/2s for 2s or whatever. Like,
yeah, you ain't blocking.
The card is basically an awkward enchantment at that point, right?
Yes.
This is a flying fuck-off wall that, if you're in late game, is a threat.
Yeah, it is actually, because I expect there to be 1 or 2 when you've played it.
Mm-hmm. If you're playing on curve, sure, yeah.
And a turn or 2 later, I'm expecting it to be 4.
Yeah.
Without too much trouble. Like, obviously, it's for the deck that's playing it, so-and-so. Yeah. But a 4/4 flyer is, like, you have to respect it. Like, you just have to. It'll do damage, and it's just getting bigger and bigger as the game goes. So
yeah, and that's what I love about it is late game, this isn't bad. Like, because there are those points, you know how bad it is to draw Electromancer later than
and
you're
supposed
to.
I've got 6 lands, bro. You're not helping. Thanks, though.
Whereas this is now, like, we'll call it a 4/4 flyer. I know it's got the insane top ends that we could get into, but, like, a 4/4 flyer is a fine case for a 3-drop in your control deck.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, if you're in, like, a Jeskai Spellsy control deck, and you're playing this with, like, a Monastery Mentor and a bunch of other stuff, who dog is this the deck for that?
Yeah, I do actually really like Haughty Djinn, but it's not for every cube, in my opinion.
And the other thing, so, like, I was talking about how, sure, it's only a 4/4 sometimes and stuff. I just was fanning through what I've got, and Magmatic Channeler. How often is that a 4/4? It happens pretty often, and that only triggers at 4 instants or sorceries.
That's true.
And you're probably playing these in, like, the exact same type of deck, where, like,
yeah,
Magmatic Channeler goes in the same deck as Haughty Djinn.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at for this style of deck.
And turning all of your Incinerate variants into Lightning Bolts is damn dangerous.
It actually is, even later in the game, just because your opponent has to respect each card in your hand that much more, because you can cast more and more of them, essentially.
Yeah, I really like this card. It's just weird because it feels so fair after we were talking about a card that is... Who wrote Aether Channeler?
Agreed. And it's one of those that, like, also, it's a 3-drop. You're kind of already pretty full on, like, Mana War variant.
And it depends what you're doing. If you're supporting tempo, you lose a lot of spaces where this could be going in. But, like, if you're playing a Spellsy deck, I don't think it's got too much at the same mana cost where I'm, like, fighting over it.
Yeah.
Like, Spellseeker, if you're playing, like,
it's
really combo-y stuff. I know Spellseeker can be used for value, but, like, that's the same deck. Nadir Kraken's generally useful in every blue deck at the 3-mana slot creature. Yeah,
I do think Haughty Djinn's a solid option to test at very least.
Maybe even in this case, we'll find out that effect sucks.
If it sucks at this case, then it just sucks.
We can just write it off as not a line of text for the rest of the time. Like,
yeah, basically.
All right, and I assume if you're running Storm, like, auto slam dunk because it makes Storm better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're already running Goblin Electromancer, well, maybe you want another.
All right, Eric, defend the last card that I don't want to defend.
The last one is the phasing of Zhalfir, which is 2 blue for an enchantment saga. The first and second are another target non-land permanent phases out. It can't phase in for as long as you control the phasing of Zhalfir. The third is destroy all creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller creates a 2/2 black phyrexian creature token. It also has Read Ahead. And Read Ahead is choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add 1 after your draw step. Skipped chapters don't trigger. Sacrifice after 3. So basically, you get to choose what chapter it enters at.
Yeah. So my go-to with Read Ahead is how busted is it to just skip to 3? Does that?
Right.
And they're all pretty safe when you do that. But
Yes.
So we're paying 2 blue for Day of Judgment, but everything becomes a 2/2.
Yes.
I'm not happy about this. I mean, I get that it's in blue, and we've not had that.
You're like, defend it. And it's tough because I don't think the phasing of Zhalfir is an auto-include. I don't think most cubes are going to even want it. But I think it's an interesting tool that some cubes will enjoy having as an option. To have that mono blue board wipe is good as an option. You can have stuff. And the first and second are not nothing.
I was just wondering, I'm like, is the correct option to like skip to 2?
2. So you get something when it like phases in and
so
out, stuff like
you
that.
go, look, my 1 creature value phases out, and then next turn, you're not going to want to play anything because you see I have a board wipe in play.
Yep.
And then we board wipe, everything becomes 2/2s, my dude comes back.
Yeah, and I think most of the time you're probably playing it with the idea that you're just going to play it board wipe. But I think that there's going to be a decent number of cases where 2 is the right option, where it's like, if I do this on 2, when everything goes away and becomes 2/2s and my thing comes back, I'm going to have board control just because mine's better, essentially.
I just worry that you won't because of sheer numbers. Because, like, the blue deck, there's times when you've got, like, 6 different 1/1 tokens because of planeswalkers, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not often outnumbering my opponent's creatures.
Right.
When the 2/2 is enough of a downgrade to make it worth doing.
And I think that is a very valid concern, is that you're downgrading your opponent's creatures to 2/2s. And sometimes the scariest ones are only 2 power and 3 power just because they're coming down early.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we doing here? That's why I'm like, I agree. This is not an amazing card. I just like that it's an option, and I don't think it's been an option before. There was the Curse of Swine, which kind of worked, but it was an X spell, so like you...
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. I've tested it. It
wasn't good. So it's just one of those that, like, I bring it up because it's an interesting option that we now have access to. And with that, we can move into Black and Brad's favorite card.
Fuck you.
The most excited card of the set that you have.
We need to talk about it.
Guess what's back, Brad?
Guess who's back? Disappointing again. Braids is back. I'm sad. All right. So this is topical. If anyone's listened to podcasts from us in the last 6 months, we've talked about Braids a couple times randomly, and I've said multiple times that, boy, I sure wish we had an upgrade over Braids Cabal Minion.
Yeah.
We don't.
We did get a chance because Braids has been printed with new stuff, and it's a 3-drop now.
Oh boy. Let's talk about it. Braids Arisen Nightmare is a 3/3 for 1 black, legendary creature Nightmare. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. Okay, so in 1v1 Magic, Braids is going to have the play pattern of you play her down as a 3/3. At the end of your turn, look at what your opponent is not willing to sacrifice that you are.
Right.
If you can find something, then you can turn what you're sacrificing into a shock to your opponent's dome and draw a card.
Yep. Which, solid.
It's okay, especially because, like, if you're playing, like, Black-Red Aristocrats, it's a once-a-turn sack outlet for, getting your sack triggers. It's at an awkward timing of the end step, but whatever.
It happens.
I don't think the card is bad at that job.
Braids Arisen Nightmare is a solid card, especially in the Aristocrats deck. Like, cool. But, Brad, tell me how you like it as a Braids card.
I'm very fucking angry and I don't want to talk about it. The May on this card is such a slap in the face.
It is.
As someone who, like, Braids is one of my favorite cards. Like, the let's not have lands and play Magic and see who can take the bigger ass kicking.
Yeah.
Like, this is the, I'm going to blow myself up, and if you want, you can join me.
Which, again, like, Braids Arisen Nightmare, not a bad card. It very much doesn't feel like Braids, though. Braids was one of those, like, we're all fucking killing each other. Like, shit's happening. Deal with it. You don't get an option.
That said, again, I do think Braids Arisen Nightmare has a purpose. It's doing that purpose. It's a free sack outlet once a turn.
Yeah.
There is the problem of, like, you're getting nothing but the sack trigger out of it if your opponent has, like, tokens. Like,
Right.
you're trying to sack a creature to get the, haha, I sacked a creature thing happen. Your opponent's just not going to let you also draw a card and get domed for 2 if they can just sacrifice a random 1/1 flying spirit or something.
Right. But I mean, that happens, like, in your aristocrats deck. Like, that's still fine. Because, like, you're doing stuff because you sacked something. Like, yeah.
I wish it was 2 lines. So it was like, at the end step, you can do the sacrifice. Then a separate line is, whenever you sacrifice something, each opponent must choose whether to... Because then you could be like, fetch lands are gross now.
Yeah, where you just like, yeah, they get the option.
Yeah.
But I'm going to overload them with my own triggers of sacrificing things from other sources to force them into a bad position. I could see that working very well, but...
Unfortunately, we don't live in a happy reality. We live in the Magic the Gathering timeline of Doctor Who and Fortnite. Anyway, okay card. Take that woman's name off that card before I end you. Let's move on.
Okay, this one is Defiler of Flesh, 2 black for a 4/4 phyrexian horror with menace. As an additional cost to cast black permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost black less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of black mana you pay. Whenever you cast a black permanent spell, target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains menace until end of turn.
Okay, so this is the first Defiler we're talking about, 3 Defilers in. I debated bringing up the Sphinx, but I think this one's also just garbage. Like,
I disagree. I don't think it's amazing, but a 4/4 menace has to be respected, and the fact that anytime you play a black permanent spell, you can give another creature +1/+1 and menace is scary.
That's
if you're
true.
trying to look to close games out, giving other creatures a power bonus and menace, evasion of some type, is a great way to close games.
Yeah.
And it's just play a black permanent spell. Like, it's not a particularly difficult thing to do. The pay 2 life instead of paying black for your spells is like, whatever, sure. I'm not here for that. Maybe there's some cool stuff that you can do with it. I'm here for the fact that, like, this is an aggressive closer in black. I don't think it's the best one. It's still a 4-drop, but I think it will do well.
Fair. I have nothing really to add to it. It's not the Defiler that I'm interested in most.
No, we'll get to that. But until then, we've got Evolved Sleeper. Ooh, tell me about this. I wanna go to sleep, so.
Alright, Evolved Sleeper is a single black mana for a 1/1 creature human. It has black. Evolved Sleeper becomes a human cleric with base power and toughness 2/2. It has 1 and a black. If Evolved Sleeper is a cleric, put a death touch counter on it and it becomes a phyrexian human cleric with base power and toughness 3/3. And it has 1 black. If Evolved Sleeper is a phyrexian, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
Hey, it's a figure of destiny.
Yeah. Everyone's going to point out it's a figure of destiny. I get it. That's a good case, to be honest, if you want an aggro creature. The thing that's coolest to me, so like when you look at Figure of Destiny, you never use that stupid last ability, ever.
It's very rare, yeah. You're happy with it becoming a 4/4.
Yeah, this one is way easier to level in the first place. Its final ability is essentially the 4/4 ability on Figure of Destiny, right? However, you can repeat it.
That's true.
And keep putting +1/+1 counters on it, draw a card, and lose a life for 3 mana.
Which is very interesting.
It lets you invest a lot into a single card to, like, slowly grind up advantage while you're like, deal with my 4/4, deal with my 5/5, deal with my...
Yeah.
You're forcing your opponent to waste removal on your 1-drop.
Yeah.
All you're losing is your mana/tempo from investing into this, which, as Figure has shown us, is a fine trade-off to make in aggressive decks.
I'm generally not a huge fan of mana sinks unless they're doing board state changes.
Yeah.
And this is getting bigger at the very least. And like drawing a card, gives you more options later on. And
I think that's the biggest part of it.
yeah.
Because the thing you always have trouble with when you're in these aggressive decks, which this is clearly for your aggro deck.
Oh, yeah.
But whenever you have one of these cards in an aggro deck, like you've got Student of Warfare, or you've got Figure of Destiny, all of those, they get big. They're good at that job.
Mm-hmm.
But those decks are notoriously rough to get card draw in. Like, unless you've got like Bob or something.
Right. And I mean, there are options to get it, but it is difficult.
Yeah.
So having card advantage on this is exciting.
Yeah, and it's so reasonably costed.
It really is.
Like, Student of Warfare's final mode is an awkward amount of mana to have fully invested into it. It's about on par with this. It's a little more technically. It's a better end case, but this has the card draw. Figure
Which means
Destiny,
that you're not quite as all in. You're kind of like, yeah, this is a problem that you need to solve.
Yeah.
But once you do, I have more options.
Figure of Destiny has essentially the same cap point, like if we're being realistic.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just adding on that draw. And this is single color versus hybrid, so it's slightly worse, but the color restriction of requiring all a color mana the whole way through is harder on Figure than Evolved Sleeper is here.
Right.
And if we're being honest, if you're looking at aggro 1-drops, like, the fuck's you're fighting against Knight of the Ebon Legion, which is a good card, but like,
yeah.
We can try this card, guys. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Let's give her a shot and see what happens.
I think this is going to be a fantastic one. I don't think it's going to break out into things other than aggro.
No. And that's kind of my problem. Like, the Figure, Student of Warfare stuff. I guess Student of Warfare gets played in mid-range sometimes.
Yeah, just because of how mono-white generally can work, but
Black in mid-range is already kind of...
And I think that's the problem, is like, because like, I'm looking at it going, okay, you play the 1/1, you upgrade it to 2/2, and then you upgrade it to a Death Touch 3/3. Death Touch 3/3. Okay, I'm here for the mid-range Death Touch 3/3. But that's 4 mana invested, I guess, in increments and whatever. But do I care in my black mid-range deck? Like, no, not really. So this is an aggro card. I think it's going to be a good black aggro card. But that's all we're here for.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a way different card.
Yeah, next up we've got the Raven Man, who's 1 in a black for a 2/1 legendary human wizard. At the beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying, and this creature can't block. You can pay 3 a black and tap to have each opponent discard a card, activate only as a sorcery.
Okay, so the activated ability thing here is like the old Nezumi Grave Robber thing. It's just meh, right?
I mean,
don't give a shit.
It's worse than meh. It's pretty fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's flavor text.
It might happen once or twice, but no, we're not here for that. This is a 2/1 for 2 with stuff about discarding.
This is a if you want it card.
Yes.
I don't think the card is bad, but I think it's going to be a specific subset of cubes that are going to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the thing that sold me was, at first, in my brain, I was like, if an opponent discards a card, you get a 1/1, and then it has the ability to make an opponent discard a card.
Which would be bad.
Yes. However, this works on stuff you discard.
Yeah, it does.
So if you're playing one of those like Black X, Vengevine, discardy, graveyard value decks, if you're playing a deck like that, this is pretty solid at just getting out a bunch of 1/1s, because it happens at each end step.
Yep.
It can only make 1, which is fine, but it happens at each end step, and that means if you have the ability to just discard at will, and you want to do so, like you've got a Putrid Imp equivalent somewhere, and you're like, I want these 2 cards out of my hand anyway, I might as well get 2 1/1 flyers to punch with.
Yeah.
I will say, the thing that like knocks it back down a serious peg for me is those tend to be like dirtily mid-rangey decks, and these can't block.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I think if they could block, the Raven Man would be amazing in those decks. Like,
which I don't think is much to ask for. Like,
I don't think so either. But as it is, I think it's still interesting enough, and if you're trying to support that, the Raven Man should probably be tested.
Yeah, I say give it a shot if you're the type of person who's going to, like, if you're the type of person who's running that deck anyway. I don't even have to give you this advice. Like, you're already interested.
Probably.
I think it's going to end up slightly obnoxious. Where, like, as soon as you realize those birds can't block, you're like, I am just adding one, essentially a Spark Mage, a ping deal 1.
Yeah. And there's not that many cases of, like, using those tokens for value.
In the discardy deck.
Yeah. To get some value of, like, I have a token, I sacrifice it, or I... whatever,
Now we're bleeding archetypes into an archetype that I think they play okay together. Just, they don't have perfect synergy, and I've tried it before and had the failures.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to like Raven Man. I really want to like him. It's a sweet card. It's just, I don't think it's going to get there.
No. Probably not. But that's okay.
Let's talk about probably never going to get there. 2 cards in a row after this one, actually, but we'll get there. Sheoldred, the Apocalypse.
Ooh, how big, exciting, a Phyrexian Praetor. This must be good.
Phyrexian Praetor with the name The Apocalypse. It must be massive. It must have a huge impact. Surely it's not boring as fuck. 2 black. Uh-oh. For a 4/5, Phyrexian Praetor with Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Man, this last ability must be amazing. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Alright, throw it in the shredder.
I don't think it's a bad card.
I'm upset.
Yeah, like, the thing is, like, 4 mana, 4/5 Death Touch, whatever. You gain some life. The 2 life from your opponent each turn, and potentially more if they're in a more card draw thing, can add up and do decent damage. Okay, cool. What are we doing calling it Sheoldred? What are we doing?
If this wasn't Sheoldred, if this was random black rare of the set, which this is a mythic too, go fuck yourself. Yeah. This was a random black rare of the set, like legendary creature, flips, dark phase.
Sure, yeah.
This would be so fucking mediocre and no one would pay attention to it.
Yeah, I'd be like, this is a neat card, I guess, maybe.
But this is our second to last of the Praetor reruns, and it makes Urabrosk look high impact.
Which is not particularly great. So, yeah.
What has happened?
Huge disappointment in this version of Sheoldred.
Her art makes Massacre Worm look tiny. Yeah. She's a fucking 4/5 Death Touch. In her original print run, it was like basically her on her crab body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that thing was massive, 7-drop, huge impact, sacking, reanimating, the whole 9 yards. What the fuck? What the fuck?
How the mighty have fallen. So.
Anyway, I'm angry. Let's move on to not gonna get there. Run it back. Same joke. Go on.
We've got Stronghold Arena, 1 and a black for an enchantment. It has kicker, green and or white. When Stronghold Arena enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life for each time it was kicked. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. Let's get the kicker nonsense out of here, because it's clearly not what we're even remotely trying to do with this card.
No, this is a black 2-drop. The kicker is irrelevant. There's 1 in 20 games where you cast this where you actually go, screw it, I've got the spare white mana, I might as well gain 3 life.
Right, but this is a 2 mana enchantment in black that anytime you're dealing damage, you can potentially draw, but you lose life.
Very limited. Because of the wording, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage, it can only trigger once a turn.
Right.
So, if you swing with 3 dudes, they all hit, you get 1 activation.
And I think my biggest problem is its combat damage to a player.
Yeah, that was my problem.
you do have to connect.
You have to connect, and it has to connect to a player. You can't be in one of those situations. It's like Swords problems, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, Swords always have that awkward moment of, like, oh god, I get no value out of this thing if I swing at the Planeswalker, but the Planeswalker is my problem right now.
Yeah. Which is why that one sword that lets you kind of deal with Planeswalkers, is, like, actually solid.
Yeah, do both. Yeah. Sinew and Steel is the best sword. Oh my god, I love that fucking sword. It's so perfect.
But, yeah, it sucks because a few small tweaks in Stronghold Arena would be very interesting.
Yeah, but as it is, it's just, this ain't Bob, guys.
This ain't Bob. This ain't Bob.
If we were dealing with enchantment version of Bob, oh boy, would I have some interest in enchantment Bob and see what happens. Is it better than Bob? Is it worse than Bob? I don't know, but it's enchantment Bob. I'm running it. This is not enchantment Bob. Nope.
So, disappointing, but we're on to red, and there's some neat ones of red.
Yes, there are. All right, so I'll start us off by reading this awful long saga.
Cool art, though.
It's cool art. Interesting story point. But the Elder Dragon War is 2 red for a saga with read ahead. Chapter 1 is the Elder Dragon War deals 2 damage to each creature and each opponent. Chapter 2 is discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. And Chapter 3 is create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Here's my quick thoughts before I let Eric rip it apart. If you don't skip ahead, or read ahead rather, if you don't read ahead, it's not bad as 4 mana, Pyroclasm the board, deal 2 to your opponent, and then you get 2 more turns of value. If you read ahead all the way to the last, it is 4 mana for a 4/4 flying dragon. You could do worse. Having the ability to split between the two, you've got the extra value of flexibility in your slower red deck, which is the only place I'm playing this. My problem is mode 2 is trash, where modes 1 and 3, the deck where mode 1 and 3 are going to be used.
Yes.
And I think it kind of screws up my positive opinion on the card, which is already a red 4-drop.
Okay, so red 4-drop problems. Red 4-drop 4/4 with flying, not enough, Brad. Not even close.
Fair enough.
I accept the fact that it has a split function of like Pyroclasm on the board. Cool. That's a nice option.
But yeah, I think it fails because of that middle one not being anything.
Which is interesting because I think if we had switched 1 and 2, I would be a lot happier with this card. Because
very fair.
Because
then you could skip to 2.
Yeah, where you'd skip to 2, deal damage, do the board wipe stuff, and then get a 4/4.
And then you've got your mid-rangey 4-drop / control-y 4-drop.
At the same time, it'll be one of those where like sometimes you do want to discard some trash out of your hand. Board's not in a problem. Let's get some new stuff. Let's play that. And then we roll the ball into the rest of the, it would work out okay. But as it is, the fact that if you do mode 1, mode 2 is not really going to help you in the decks that's doing it. And then mode 3 isn't enough because you're so far late in the game, like whatever. I just don't think that that mode 1 is enough of a split option for the mode 3 being fine. I don't think the Elder Dragon War is a bad card. We just have so many better options, generally.
Let's talk about a better option in the 4-drop slot that I still don't know if it makes the cut.
Exactly. We've got Jaya, Fiery Negotiator. 2 red for a Planeswalker Jaya with 4 starting and loyalty. She has a +1, created 1/1 red monk creature token with prowess. A -1, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. A -2, choose target creature an opponent controls. Whenever you attack this turn, Jaya Fiery Negotiator deals damage equal to the number of attacking creatures to that creature. And a -8, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a red instant or sorcery spell, copy it twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. I like Jaya. I think the +1 is actually pretty solid. The -1 is very nice in many red decks. The -2 is wordy and annoying, but could be powerful in situations. I don't care about the ultimate. All of that said, We just have better.
Like, she's fighting Torch of Defiance. Flat out, in the same slot.
Yeah.
And,
I like Torch better, like, a good amount better. It was
Yeah,
just disappointing, because, like I said, I like Jaya.
This is Jaya's best card.
I think it's a solid
It's her last card,
planeswalker.
so it's probably fine that it's her best one.
Oof.
Let's get a nice Jimmy Wong reacting on screen. Thanks. That's what I want. This isn't cringe.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a good card, and I would not be disappointed in it showing up in cubes at all. But I can't really push for it because the other options that we already have, like Torch of Defiance, is just kind of better.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can move on to an insane card, Brad.
We've got Keldon Flamesage. 2 and a red for a 2/3 creature human shaman. Keldon Flamesage has Enlist, and whenever Keldon Flamesage attacks, look at the top X cards of your library where X is Keldon Flamesage's power. You may exile an instant or sorcery card with mana value X or less from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost.
Fucking hell.
We've reached some spice levels. I now care about this card and its power, and I want to do things with it, and Enlist makes it better, and you already want to use Enlist so that you're risking less of your cards when you swing. Mm-hmm. Everything's wrapped up all nice in a little bow. It's a non-Rabble Master in a 3-drop slot in red, which is interesting, even if, you know, it's a hard thing to get into, but I think this makes the cut.
I think this absolutely makes the cut. The Enlist on this is big for all of the reasons that we've talked about Enlist being solid as an option in an aggressive kind of deck. The fact that you get to grab an instant or sorcery from your deck that's mana value X or less, which is going to be minimum 2, likely 4, is pretty big. Even ignoring the fact that you get to cast it for free.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be like red. Should you be in, like, you know, any type of...
Fact or fiction.
Yeah.
Cool.
But, like, I'm going to assume it's going to be red because you're going to play it in a more aggressive deck in your cube where you're equipping it. And if you're equipping it, your secondary color is probably either black or white, which you're either getting a kill card or a kill card with extra steps, or you're getting a burn spell.
Yeah. I do think that this will make it into a blue-red spellsy deck because it's a more tempo-oriented.
I think it still makes it there. It is awkward when, like, you flip over your counter spells and you're like, well, I'm not going to choose any of these, and you shove them back in.
Yeah, but, I mean, that happens anytime that you do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, anytime you get a freeze spell, you have to deal with the fact that, like, yeah, counter spells are bad at that.
Right.
But, yeah, getting even, like, a Ponder or Preordained, just like with Death Horde Arcanist, like, pretty good.
Yeah, and it's one of those that, like, in those kinds of decks, because it has Enlist, you can have your, like, the creatures that you wouldn't have attacked with anyways because they're just...
Yeah, your random 1/1 just to pump it to see if you can't hit that 3-drop.
Yeah, like, just whatever random shit that you're just not going to attack with, you just pump it up a little bit. Like, that's not a bad deal. So, yeah, I think Keldon Flamesage works in just about everything that is even slightly aggressive leaning. And yeah, I'm here for it.
Okay, so I had a funny, stupid, very specific thing I thought of that made me chuckle, so I will share it.
All right.
Wheel of Misfortune is not really good enough, right?
No.
We know that. And it's very awkward to resolve because you got to do the secret number bullshit.
Yeah.
I thought of, so you're doing this, and you're like, okay, I swing with this. I'm going to enlist with this, whatever. Flip over my top cards, and I choose Wheel of Misfortune. I then put the rest on the bottom of my library. Okay, we have to resolve combat, and then we have to resolve a Wheel of Misfortune.
All right.
And I'm just thinking of how much time we've added to a game by using this trigger, and it's a useless, dumb thing that just made me chuckle to think about.
Okay. Glad to have that story.
I don't know why that I don't know why that just made me laugh so hard to think of.
That would honestly be pretty fucking annoying. It would be funny afterwards, but like,
because my downside in my head with this card is like, I mean, the trigger is awkwardly long mid combat to go through. And it's like, what's the most obnoxious thing I can realistically have to resolve with this that is going to make this card cost us minutes of our lives?
Okay, I see where you're going with that now. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Eric, let's talk about a 3-1 for 2 with flavor text.
Yeah, Radha's Firebrand is 1 and a red for a 3-1 human warrior. Whenever Radha's Firebrand attacks, target creature defending player controls with power less than Radha's Firebrand's power can't block this turn. It also has domain. Pay 5 and a red to have Radha's Firebrand get +2/+2 until end of turns. Ability cost 1 less to activate for each basic land type among lands you control. Activate only once each turn.
Okay.
Domains, whatever, doesn't count.
I think the domain counts. So hear me out.
Really?
Hear me out. This is a 3-1 for 2. Already okay, because red likes aggressive creatures.
Yeah, and you turn off a blocker, and yeah, that's solid.
It's not just turn off a blocker for this, though. We're turning off a blocker for the entire attack.
Right.
So let's say you have a single Triome in your red-white deck because you have this card. You fetch your Triome. This thing now costs 3 less, so it's now just 3 mana to domain. It's very realistic to hit 3 mana domain on this thing. So having your 2-drop next turn, you pay 3 mana, and this thing is 5 power. Your opponent's best creature can't block.
Yeah.
At all for anything. Yeah. Your goblin guy gets through, and now they have to remove this random fucking 2-drop. Because, like, you now threaten for forever, like, your best creature on every single turn is never going to block.
Yeah.
You now need your second best creature to be able to take care of my stuff.
Okay.
And I think this is I'm talking about, like, a really good case for this. Like, just generically.
Making it 2 less because you're in a Boros deck. Yeah. You're at 4 mana, which is when you're trying to kill them, and you turn off their 4 mana blocker, make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and that's a fine late game part for this. On curve, even without all that special shit, this is a 2-drop, 3-1, their Wall of Omens doesn't get to block, fuck you, hit them in the face until they find something better.
Yeah, and that was like, that's why we're here, and that's good.
Yeah, that's the, like, why you argue that it's worth a test. I think the other case is why you argue it's going to have splashy big moments where you remember this card. Yeah. And you want to keep it over other crap that you don't even remember you put in your cube last year because a billion cards came out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, like, without that domain, like, it's a good card. Like, Radha's Firebrand is a good aggressive card, but it's unexciting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I could see that domain happening every once in a while and it being interesting and adding that little extra bit. So okay, I'm here.
The domain to me is a late game, like, this now is active in late game. Because you have to remember the thing with domain is, with these activated abilities, I think we're going to talk about one more. I don't remember. I debated at least one other. Yeah. They are cheaper than they look because you already have a mountain because you're in red. Fuck you, you didn't have all non-basics without types. But you already have a mountain because you're red. You probably have a second one because of a random duel or having a 2-color deck and you just have a plains or whatever. Yeah. That brings us down to 3 in a red in a very normal case. 3 in a red for +2/+2 is not the worst thing to end up with on your random 2-drop when you're in top deck mode and you're like, shit, I drew my 2-drop.
And you draw a land and you're like, fuck.
At least you're drawing a 5-power thing if you are drawing this in some damn mountains and getting pissed off.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot worse 2-drops to top deck.
Definitely. Interesting. Okay.
All right, so let's move on to a card that I have a negative opinion of. I think Eric has to defend this from me.
Go ahead.
We've got Squee, Dubious Monarch, which is a dubious inclusion in your cube. It's 2 in a red for a 2/2 legendary creature, Goblin Noble. Squee Dubious Monarch has haste, and whenever Squee Dubious Monarch attacks, Create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. You may cast Squee Dubious Monarch from your graveyard by paying 3 in a red and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying this mana cost. It has escape for 4 cards and 4 in a red, or in 3 in a red.
This isn't the best Rabble Master variant.
This is
not even close.
A minor upgrade over Legion War Boss, and Legion War Boss, in my opinion, is the worst Rabble Master that people occasionally play. So I guess if you're playing that, you have an upgrade.
I think it's substantially better than that, because having access to bringing this back is actually really good.
Yeah, fair. At least once. You can bring it back at least once.
Right, yeah. And I'm basing this on bringing it back once, because it's one of those, like, you're in the more aggressive decks. If you're trying to bring it back twice, like, you're so far into the game that, like, yeah, realistically, it's not going to help.
Yeah.
But I think it's very doable to play it back once. Like, you're going to have 4 cards in your graveyard if they're dealing with this, because, like, just playing stuff in the aggressive deck, you're trading, you're doing whatever. 4 mana, you've already played a 3 mana thing and they've dealt with it, so it's not too ridiculous. I think that is nice because it, forces another answer to your Rabble Masters.
Yeah, but your Rabble Masters, specifically the ones that must attack to make the token, like, they get worse the further in the game you get.
That's true. That is true.
So the second play of Dubious Monarch is more dubious, I can't stop myself, than the first.
That said, this is still a hasty 3 power, essentially.
Sure, for 3, I know.
Yeah.
Again, I like it better than War Boss still.
So, it's one of those, like, you're like, defend it, and I'm like, well, it's not the best, but it's another option that I do think is good enough. The problem is that, like, do you want to have all of your 3 drops be Rabble Master variants?
That was my thought. How many Rabble Masters are you playing?
There's 4 solid ones.
That's what I was just thinking.
So yeah, like, whatever. This is another option that I think is fair, and I think it's a solid option if you're interested in having a Squee, because it's got, like, it's Squee. Hey, there's name recognition. Cool. Sure. Good enough card.
I have a minor rant of, I feel like Rabble Masters kind of ruined the red 3-drop slot because Wizards realized that everyone loves Rabble Master and just decided that forever we need a red, decent 3-drop. We'll make a slightly worse version of Goblin Rabble Master again.
Yeah, it's easy design space.
They just throw them in once a year when someone's like, it's Friday afternoon, I already drank at lunch, I'm just going to write this and pretend I did work today.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, that does kind of make it still so, like, they're decent cards, right? Like,
how many Rabble Masters do I need to read in my life?
One a year.
So let's move into the final color here before we get into Multicolor and Colorless. Let's go to green.
Yeah, we've got the next Defiler. I think this is the one you're interested in. We've got Defiler of Vigor, 3 green for a 6/6 Phyrexian worm with trample. As an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost green less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay. And it has whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Alright, okay. Go ahead.
So I fucking hate the Phyrexian, the Defiler Cycle's Phyrexian paragraph.
Yeah.
I just wish it said, green permanent spells you control have Phyrexian green instead of green. Like,
okay.
And then the rest can be reminder text. It just sounds so much cleaner. Because when you're reading these, you're like, as an additional cost, you can pay life. And then it removes cost. And, like, only reduces green. And, like, just fucking write green equals phi green.
Yeah.
I hate that formatting. Anyway, so let's talk about the actual card. This is the only Defiler in the cycle that I like. I actually thought the blue one was borderline, but it wasn't even worth reading because I looked at blue cards.
Yeah, I was like, it doesn't really fit with blue cards and what the other options are.
So Defiler of Vigor, you've got 5 mana to cast it. For most of them, they all come down way too late because they're all like 5-6 mana. I think black being 4 is the lowest. But it is over curve as a 6/6 trample for 5. That ain't great. I know it ain't great.
No, it's actually not. Like, it sounds good, but it's not great.
But here's the deal. Green is the only color where I am expecting my deck to contain things over the drop of the Defiler for that color.
Mm-hmm.
In a deck that would play something with that body type. Because the black one, yes, you can have 6 drops in your black deck, but the ones that have that aren't playing anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like, the decks that are going to play Defiler Vigor are going to have 6 drops.
So I'm ramping out a 5 mana 6/6 trample on turn 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I can now pay life instead of mana if I'm not against a red deck. Don't do this against a red deck. To speed out my other big drops. Unfortunately, this is going to cause overinvestment where I'm going to slam out, my random 7-drop Hornet Queen or whatever, while this is in play and just beta board wipe like crazy. However, the thing that really saves this for me is that last ability. Whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That means if you top deck an elf, which everyone who plays ramp knows is the worst fucking feeling in the world.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
Because it's green permanent, it also works on your enchantment elves, like your wild growths.
Yep.
You at least are causing +1/+1 counters on all your current crap in field, like your 2 other elves that you already have in play sitting around worthlessly. Now at least they have a body.
The Defiler is also a 7/7, and the 8/8. Like,
and it's still got trample. Like, they can't just ignore it and block it with a 1/1 or something. Like,
right.
I think the Defiler is good enough that you could test it. I don't think I'm going to love it. I have a feeling I don't like it more than any of my current green 5s.
There's good green 5s, dude.
And I think this kind of shows how bad you can make phyrexian mana be when you make people jump through hoops and limit it.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not even here for the Defiler part of it. I think I'm here for, this is a reasonable body, and we're getting +1/+1 counters. Yeah.
I think that's my problem with this card. Yes, you're right. Is the Defiler is the Defiler's ability is the worst part of the card.
Yeah. I generally like a lot of the other 5 drops that we play more, but I think if you're trying to do more of a +1/+1 counter stuff, Defiler Vigor is very interesting because it gives you the first one on everything essentially and then keeps going.
I kind of wish it was a 4-drop with the 5/5 body instead of the 5-drop 6/6 body.
It would be substantially better, yes.
Because 4-drops in green have a lot more, this is just a dumb beat stick with some flavor text that's good.
Yeah, I mean, you've got
your Thruns and your whatever. There's a bunch of options in there that are all this is just mid-range creature with good stats and then a bunch of text on it. Fucking questing beast.
Yeah.
So, if Defiler was fighting those, I'd tear a questing beast up and put this in just because I fucking hate remembering questing beast text.
Yeah. Honestly, as it is, Defiler Vigor, I think, is a fine test, but if you're trying to push +1/+1 counters, I think you should really look at including it because it'll probably work well. Otherwise, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so up next we have Llanowar Loam Speaker, which is 1 and a green for a 1/3 elf druid. It has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and tap, target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with haste until end of turn. It's still a land, activate only as a sorcery.
Ooh.
Yeah, it can't be used defensively.
I honestly ignored that last part, and I was like, this seems like a solid option. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You have to remember, this is fighting for the Lotus Cobra, Paradise Druid, all those, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So Paradise Druid is a card you and I both like, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a 2/1 for 2, tap to add 1 of any color.
But it's hexproof, so they can't immediately kill it.
Until you tap it.
Yeah. You get to use it once.
You can use it more than once. It's just...
Yeah, but you're guaranteed.
It's a bigger upside than Lotus Cobra's fetch land bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think this also is a bigger upside than Lotus Cobra's fetch land bullshit. Of when you don't need mana, this card at least turns a land into a 3/3 every combat.
I guess.
this to me it's the 2-drop creature equivalent of like Edge of Autumn as a ramp spell, which I prefer over the like generic ramp and growth, right?
Yeah.
Where when you need ramp, it's ramp. When you don't need ramp, you can sacrifice your land or whatever to get other value. In that case, is draw a card. In this case, it's the create a 3/3. So that's where I see the parallel there. I actually really like this card.
Really?
Yeah, I actually think it's one of the 2 drops that I would actually play to create mana. I kind of fucking hate Lotus Cobra. Won't lie.
Sure.
And I still run that.
I don't like it because I like the other options better. Like, I like Paradise Druid better because having the guaranteed first tap, essentially, is like, that's why we're here, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I like Sylvan Caryatid better because
it's always hexproof. But
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also going to have 3 toughness, which is, it's defensive, so like this one's 3 toughness.
Sure.
That Caryatid is just doing it better. Even for the more like aggressive kind of thing, I feel like I might like Incubation Druid more.
That's the one that I didn't know.
Because it's one of those, like, if Land War Loam Speaker didn't have the activate only as a sorcery, and it could also work as a, turn this land into a defensive option, because I don't really care so much about the land at the moment, it would open up more play to me. But as it is, it's only like, what? I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, I see your mixed feelings on it.
I don't think it's bad. Like, it's still gonna try and do that, optional 2-mana ramp thing. So, like, if you're interested in having this as an option, cool. Not really for me, though.
All right. What is for you then, Eric? What is for you? Yeah, we know.
Lurgoyfs are for me. Particularly Urborg Lurgoyf. 1 and a green for a star, 1+ star. Creature Lurgoyf with kicker, blue and or black. As Urborg Lurgoyf enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards for each time it was kicked. Urborg Lurgoyf's power is equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. I love this card. Holy shit, this is so cool.
Yeah,
it's also not really a green card.
Yes, this is not the most powerful one in the set, but this is my favorite card in the set from a rare and mythic standpoint.
I can totally get behind that.
There are other ones that are more powerful.
This is your, Vengevine, do that kind of self-mill. Let's get there.
I want to play Bug, and I want to play exclusively Graveyard Shenanigans.
Yeah, let's go.
Look, I get that this is mid-power level. It's not the strongest thing to ever exist. That said, this is probably the best Sultai card. Yeah, this is the best Sultai card. Absolutely the best Sultai card. No, it's like Yarick is the other one, and I'd rather play this than Yarick.
I do like Yarick, but yeah, probably.
I just...
Yeah.
The power toughness thing is like, that's cute. I'm here because this lets you mill yourself and get a body, like a reasonable body. It doesn't have to be huge, but just enough.
And it can get big in those decks.
It definitely can. Those decks,
because it's just going to sit around. It did its thing, and it's just going to grow.
Yeah, those decks are dense, and it's always awkward because like your opponent's sitting there and is like, okay, he's got a whole bunch of crap that he can do, but how is he actually going to kill me?
Exactly.
And now I can wave my finger and go, but I have this 4/5 or better usually.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Urborg Lurgoyf. I don't care what you think about it. Get fucked.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not for every cube, but I think any cube that's doing that stuff is going to be super excited by it.
Yeah. It's the much better and easier to defend version of the Raven Man's
Yes.
You know if you're the cube who wants this, because, like, this is the one where if you want this, you really goddamn want this, and you were, like, drooling over it already.
Yeah, that's basically true.
All right, let's move on to one that's not for me, but is the equivalent for somebody else. We have Kyrian Beastcaller. I don't know how to say that first word. That's how it's getting pronounced. For 1 and a green for a 2/2 Dryad Warrior. Kyrian Beastcaller has, whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kyrian Beastcaller. It also has, when Kyrian Beastcaller dies, distribute X +1/+1 counters among target creatures you control, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. This card obviously is the updated Kyrian Dryad. I was never a big fan of Kyrian Dryad. There's also Mana Gorger Hydra is another variant at 3 mana that a lot of people have played in the past. These are not my card, but I know people love them.
Yeah, but I do think that this one is pushed enough that it's generally good. Like, you're playing a green deck. They have creatures. This is a 2 mana 2/2 that if you play creatures is better. And then, like, when it dies,
if they kill card it, you're moving the problem to the next thing.
Exactly. And it's not just the next thing. It's like you distribute them. So, like,
sure.
Yeah, which I think does matter because
I didn't think of, you're correct. Because you can split it up, it's a big deal.
Yeah, like, you diversify once they kill card it, and at the same time, if you're doing stuff with +1/+1 counters,
all the better.
Put them on other things, and it's just a 2-drop, so it's trying to, enable a bunch of that stuff. And yeah, I think this one is actually just a solid card. Not every cube has spots for it, but I think if you're just looking for generally good cards, this one will be solid. And like you said, there are other cubes that have been playing worse versions of this just because some people really enjoy the play style. And yeah, this is a slam dunk for that.
All right, we have reached Multicolor and Colorless. Let's hit these, and then we get to talk about the 2 cards from DMC I give a shit about.
All right, let's hit it big with a Boros card. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. We've got Astor, Bearer of Blades, 2 red-white for a 4/4 legendary human warrior. When Astor, Bearer of Blades, enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment or vehicle card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equipment you control have Equip 1. Vehicles you control have Crew 1.
Look, I want the equipment thing to be a thing. This is a slam dunk to me.
I agree. I also think it's solid just because, like, 7 cards.
You won't miss that often if you're in an equipment-heavy aggro deck.
It doesn't even have to be that heavy. That's like a quarter of your deck.
True.
Like, if you have 3 equipment in your deck, that's a solid fucking chance to hit something.
Yeah.
Right?
The downside is about half the equipment that I would run in a cube already equipped for 1 because they would be bad if they didn't. Yeah. The vehicle thing is flavor text to me because they just wanted vehicle on there. There's only like 2 or 3 vehicles in my cube.
And there's like 3, maybe 4 defendable vehicles, depending on what you're looking at. And some of them in the Crew 1 will matter, but most of them, whatever.
Yeah, Copter is already Crew 1.
Yeah.
But again, if you find your Copter when you're looking for a sword or something, you're still fine.
Yeah. Turning
a sword or GT into Equip 1 is a nice little upgrade.
Yeah, the sword turning Equip 1 is nice. I don't think Astor's amazing, but we're in Boros.
We're in Boros. We can do whatever the fuck we want here.
Basically, yeah. And pushing equipment, I'm here for it.
All right, let's talk about something that is almost sort of kind of for the ninja deck. It's weird.
Okay.
So we got Urtai Resurrected. Urtai is back again. Something, tell your friends.
Okay.
Urtai Resurrected is 2 blue-black for a 3/2 legendary creature phyrexian human wizard.
Hey, it's human wizard.
I know. Urtai Resurrected has Flash, and when Urtai Resurrected enters the battlefield, choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability, its controller draws a card. Destroy another target creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. So Urtai is very easily comparable to Venser.
Yeah.
4-drop Venser being a 2/2 who bounces a spell or permanent back to their hand. This instead destroys that thing or counters it or whatever. It gets rid of it, makes that go to the graveyard and makes them draw a random card off the top.
Right.
And is a 3/2 instead of a 2/2.
But is in 2 colors.
But it's 2 colors.
In one of the strongest 2-color combination.
That said, if you have no interest in slower stuff and you're trying to push that blue-black tempo as your theme, I can easily find a slot for this.
Yeah.
This is the type of thing where if you're trying to make blue-black be a very tempo-oriented deck, here's your dude.
Right, because you're not, in those tempo things, you're not so worried about the random card as you are, here's the problem, I've dealt with it.
Yeah.
Your random card doesn't matter at the moment because hopefully you're dead soon.
Yeah, and like in a worst case, if they take turn 4 off for some godforsaken reason, you can just jam it out at the end of their turn as 3/2 and punch with it. Like,
yeah,
whatever.
3 is probably the biggest that you have in that deck.
That's the sad part. Is like this is actually one of the highest powers in that deck.
Yeah.
So I don't think the card is an all-star. I think it's got a lot it has to fight in Dimir at this point.
Yes.
You have to want it, but if you want it, I think the power is there.
Okay. Makes sense.
Let's talk about needing to want it.
Yeah, I gotta want King Darien 48.
It's King Darien 48. No, it's King Darien XLVIII. That's just his name.
Yeah, okay. King Darien XLVIII is...
Oh, thank God it doesn't use his full name later on.
I was just looking, I was like, oh man, if they do it, I'm set. I'm totally going with it all in. King Darien is 1 green-white for a 2/3 legendary human soldier. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay 3 green-white to put a +1/+1 counter on King Darien and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. You can sacrifice King Darien to have creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
Okay, so real talk, it's not the flashiest card.
But we're in green-white, so it's okay.
The thing with green-white is there is 100 Bs. There's like very few As in their job, right?
Yeah.
It's a choose your own adventure. Like after like Night of Autumn, like
there's a few good ones, but generally they're just solid options and you get to choose.
Yeah, you can go either like creature combo, you can go let's go mid-range token. Like if you're going mid-range token, you probably pick King Darien and you probably pick Tristani to eat up some slots.
Oh yeah.
Like Tristani Discord. Whereas you could go like the land route, you could end up with like Knight of the Reliquary and stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
You go the +1/+1 counter route, you go like Good Fortune Unicorn, whatever.
Creature combo type stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of options, which is nice.
The thing for me is I think he plays well generically, and technically he plays with +1/+1 counters, though it's very weak.
Yeah.
More importantly, he plays very well in tokens. Really well in tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Universal Anthem effect on a 2/3 body for 3 is not a bad starting point.
No, but it's one of those that like we've ran into 3-mana anthems being bad generally, so
yeah.
Being on a body helps.
The 5-mana mana sink for essentially make him a little bigger and get an extra token is whatever. The token is 2 power and toughness worth of body. Like,
yeah.
The 5-mana activation is essentially providing you 3 power.
Right.
But the big thing to me is his sacrifice ability. Like, you've got an Anthem, and you've overinvested in your board state, because you kind of have to, because that's how tokens works.
Yeah, you generally have to go wide, so...
Yeah. And your opponent is like, oh my god, I pulled my Wrath, and then they stare at this thing.
And they're like, I guess my Wrath is a kill spell.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
This guy is definitely worth trying out, depending on what you're trying to get out of Selesnya. It's going to be a very easy pick based off of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was not particularly excited by this, but I think you've sold it on being a solid option in a lot of different decks for Selesnya.
in our personal cube, we were pushing very hard for creature combo last.
Right.
If I hard turned back to, look, I want to go tokens, then I would definitely be swapping in King Darien for one of the slots.
Yeah, that's fair. And the sacrifice to make your tokens indestructible, it's only creature tokens. It's not your other stuff as well. But that's still probably worth it if you're a token-heavy deck. Interesting. Okay. It's time for colorless. I'm starting us off with a very shit card that makes me angry. And I misunderstood what it was doing because I thought they were going to make Karn a good card. And then I was confused that people didn't like him, and then I reread it, and then I was angry. So we're going to talk about my anger. Karn Living Legacy is a 4-mana disappointment with 4 starting loyalty. He has a +1 ability, create a tapped Power Stone token. A -1 ability of pay any amount of mana. Look at that many cards from the top of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Then a -7 of you get an emblem with tap an untapped artifact you control. This emblem deals 1 damage to any target. Okay, so I didn't read you why I'm disappointed. No, you forgot the reminder text on the +1.
So I didn't read what a Power Stone token was. In my mind, I was like, this is the return to Dominaria. Last time we were on Dominaria, they had that neat artifact Power Stone, where the more copies of it you had in play, the more mana it produced.
Yeah, Power Stone Shard.
Yeah, and I was like, cool, it's making a token version of this artifact.
Which is interesting, because I thought that it was like, I was like, oh, it's like a Warren Power Stone. That's cool.
Yeah, and I was like, especially because this is a Power Stone token. Warren Power Stone makes 2 mana.
Yeah.
Power Stone Shard makes scaling mana. A whole fucking Power Stone apparently makes a single mana that can only be used on casting artifact spells. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Dude, break your Power Stones. Everybody, go out there and start shattering Power Stones, or wear them out, because they get much better the worse off they are.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely get better like wine as it ages, man.
Yeah, when I read this card, I was like, okay, the turn he comes down, he's not very good. He's just making a thing that taps for mana. But then the next time, he's essentially made 4 mana at that point. Then the next time, then the next time he's made 9 mana, and you're up to your ultimate. Like, there's a whole lot of threat going on here, right? Except that's not what it fucking does, and what I thought it does makes more goddamn sense with the pay any amount of mana thing.
Right, because it would be like one of those, oh, I've spent twice doing the +1, then I can, with 4 extra mana, I'll be able to look through my whole fucking deck. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
but you can't, because you can't even use it.
I fucking hate it.
And I do like the ultimate. The ultimate's cool. I'm a big fan of that.
The ultimate's dumb. It's not a game-ending ultimate. It's one of those slow ping-em ultimates. The problem is, like...
Exactly. It's awesome. It's like the Red Enchantment that I love. But it's twice as good.
Because of the plus and the alt, Karn is only going to fucking work in a single deck. And he is fighting himself, Tezzeret, and 5 other fucking things that could be in his slot. That are all better than him.
Yeah.
Like, this is the biggest fucking disappointment.
It is. It really is.
All right, so let's go into the last card, which is a much, much better version of Karn.
Yeah, Karn's Silex is 3 mana for a legendary artifact. Karn's Silex enters the battlefield tapped. Players can't pay life to cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. It also has X-tap exile Karn's Silex to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. Activate only as a sorcery.
The casual last ability just being fucking Pernicious Deed plus.
Yeah, just why not, you know? And like the middle of turning off like
it's fetch lands. It's nothing else. It's fucking fetch lands.
Thank you. I was like, there's a word for those lands. Eric, you could do it. I would be more interested if it could even stop mana abilities and like turn off Pains and Talismans and be like really spicy. I don't think we need it though.
No, the whole reason we're here is
No, we're here for Pernicious Deed that's colorless.
Yeah. Colorless Pernicious Deed is why we're here. I don't think we need any more argument for this.
Nope.
Like, there you go. Also, P-Deed is a weird one where, like, it's really good and I like running it, but I also hate that it's just a destruction card like the rest of fucking Golgari.
It is a kind of, generic destruction thing in Golgari. It's a more interesting one in my opinion than a lot of them, but it's still.
So it's nice to move it into colorless and like maybe you still run both. Maybe you use it as your excuse to finally spice up your Golgari section and get something more interesting than P-Deed in there.
Yeah, I mean it also, because it's colorless, turns in like it hits enchantments and it's colorless. Not every color has access to dealing with enchantments. So, not a huge thing, but it's nice. Okay, Brad, you want to hit the first dragon?
Sure. It's Bladewing, my favorite, buddy. Bladewing, Deathless Tyrant, 5 black and red for a 6/6 dragon skeleton with flying and haste. Bladewing also has whenever Bladewing Deathless Tyrant deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, for each creature card in your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie knight creature token with menace. Yeah, if you play him out fair, not the greatest, especially because black-red means we're basically in Grixis control at this point, or I guess you could be in like really slow Rakdos control.
I guess.
But if we're being honest, we're reanimating him.
Yeah, this is a cheat card, and it's solid.
Yeah, I don't think it's like the best one. I have a feeling Bladewing is going to be 15 cents after this set is settled.
Yeah, it might be. I hope. I mean, it's still a dragon, so there's the dragon tax, but that's fine.
I'm hoping there is nothing to Bladewing's price. It's a fun cheat into play reanimation card. Like, go for it.
Definitely fun.
Basically, why I'm here to talk about it. The more important of these two is Two-Headed Hellkite, Eric.
Yeah, Two-Headed Hellkite is 1 white, blue, black, red, green. For a 5/5 dragon with flying, menace, and haste. And whenever Two-Headed Hellkite attacks, draw 2 cards.
So real talk. I like this over Progenitus if you're going to run a Progenitus in your cube.
I do as well.
So Progenitus obviously ends a game faster. No one's going to deny you that. I get that fact. Move it aside. If you're going to natural order, though, and you want to get something spicy, this is not a bad target because you natural order, you get a 5/5 essentially unblockable haste, and it's going to immediately draw you 2 cards to make up for natural ordering, which is we're back to flush.
Yeah.
If you're reanimating it, equally great. Of just turn 2, you get a haste menace flyer that's drawing cards to help recover from the fact you played combo reanimator.
Which is great as well.
Yeah. If we're playing in Sneak and Show, and you're playing with like Sneak Attack, it already has the haste, but whatever, still get some value off of it to keep feeding the Sneak Attack. Yep. Show and Tell, instant value. Like,
yeah, the draw 2 cards is huge for making sure that it's not just like, here's my one threat. If you deal with it, I'm fucked.
Yeah. Here's the caveat to all of this, though, is that the draw is not on entry, it's on attack, which is better long term, but there is that very tiny window where you go, cheat in Two-Headed Hellkite, go to attacks, and they go, okay, I am going to, not Doombladed, I guess, I am going to go for the Throat It.
Yeah, and you've just failed miserably, and that happens.
It's there, it happens, but that's kind of why I like it better than Progenitus, because that's healthier. This does snowball like crazy. Like, after this thing is attacked twice, like, before it even does the second combat damage, it's gained so much fucking value. It's technically castable. Like, if you want to be the guy playing 5-color control funny stuff.
It is castable. Like, you don't even have to be, like, 5-color. If you're a solid control deck that's 3-color with good land base, you just add in
off-colored talismans or whatever.
Yeah.
Your signets, whatever.
And you're just like, cool, I can just cast this. I mean, you're not casting it on curve, like, it's just not going to happen. But late game, you draw it and you're like, yeah, I can do it. not really why we're here, but it is an option. I do actually really like this card. It's just cool. Drawing cards when you attack. 2 cards when you attack, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
It's honestly one of the top cards from the set for me, just from a, like, emotional standpoint, looking at it going, I want to cast this card or cheat this card in and do something weird with it. Like,
yeah, I want to play this card. Like,
yes, this card is demanding that I use it. Whereas a lot of these cards I don't give a crap about.
Yeah.
So tune in to next week's episode to have the longer portion of this review, because this set was weirdly upside down in excitement level. Commons and uncommons are nutty for some reason.
Yeah.
Until then, let's get out of here for the week.
Sounds good.